The war stretched across countless star systems, a relentless clash of powerful civilizations locked in a struggle that had pushed the galaxy to the brink. Alien empires, once dominant forces in their regions, found themselves desperate for allies as the conflict dragged on. Entire fleets were decimated, and what had once been minor skirmishes evolved into battles of survival. Resources were scarce, morale waning, and the universe seemed to echo with the groans of an exhausted, beleaguered alliance that couldn't afford another loss. Amid this chaos, the question of seeking humanity's help surfaced. The humans, after all, were a minor presence in the grander scheme of galactic affairs, barely involved in interstellar politics. Their technology, though unique, was assumed to be far behind the advancements of the more established races. They were viewed as independent, a species that hadn't chosen a side and preferred isolation over entanglement in the war that had engulfed the galaxy. But now, with their forces stretched thin and allies crumbling under the weight of unrelenting enemy forces, the leaders of the Galactic Alliance turned to Earth with reluctant hope. In a war council among the highest-ranking alien generals, a proposal was made to approach humanity. Voices were divided, many alien leaders scoffing at the idea of involving such a primitive race. Others, weighed down by the grim reality of the war, argued that any assistance was better than none. Finally, after heated debate, it was decided Earth would receive a request for aid, if only as a last resort. The message was sent, outlining the severity of the situation and extending an invitation to join the Alliance's desperate fight. When Earth's response arrived, it caught the Council by surprise. Humanity agreed to join, without hesitation. Their response was succinct, a simple acknowledgement of the situation and a statement that they would send their forces to the front lines immediately. The Alliance command was left puzzled by the lack of negotiation or demands for strategic positions. They'd expected humans to ask for details, perhaps even plead for favorable conditions. Instead, humanity's reply was short, direct, and confident. True to their word, humanity's ships began to appear on the battlefield, catching both the Alliance and their enemies off guard. The first of humanity's vessels were smaller than the massive battleships that filled the war-torn sectors of the galaxy, but there was a quiet intensity in their arrival. Their hulls were marked with symbols unfamiliar to the galactic forces, crafted with a practical, rugged efficiency that spoke of purpose rather than grandeur. The alien allies, observing from a distance, couldn't hide their skepticism. They were used to awe-inspiring displays of power, massive cruisers, fleets wielding energy weapons with the capacity to obliterate moons. By comparison, humanity's fleet appeared almost minimalistic. Alien officers muttered among themselves, questioning whether the humans understood the full scope of the enemy they faced. But as humanity's forces began moving into position, there was a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a quiet confidence that belied their small numbers. When the first engagement began, the aliens watched in growing astonishment. Humanity's forces deployed with precision, avoiding the enemy's long-range weapons with an agility that left their allies stunned. They struck fast, executing coordinated attacks that threw the enemy into chaos. Every human ship moved with exact timing, leveraging their smaller size to outmaneuver the larger, heavily armored vessels of the enemy fleet. Their strategy was disorienting, unpredictable, a sharp contrast to the structured formations that the galaxy had come to expect from both allies and enemies alike. As the skirmish continued, alien commanders watched humanity's tactics unfold, each move revealing a new facet of their strategy. Humans used decoys, feints, and flanking maneuvers with a skill that bordered on artistry. The enemy, accustomed to straightforward confrontations, found themselves outpaced, their attacks repeatedly falling short or striking where humanity's forces had already moved on. Alien allies began to realize they were witnessing something unique. The humans weren't bound by the rigid doctrines that govern most galactic warfare. They adapted in real time, shifting formations with a fluidity that left the enemy scrambling. In the aftermath of the first engagement, the galactic allies exchanged silent, awed glances. Humanity had proven their worth far beyond what any of them had anticipated. Initial skepticism faded, replaced with an unspoken respect. Alien commanders, who had doubted humanity's ability to contribute meaningfully, found themselves rethinking every assumption they'd held about Earth and its people. As reports of humanity's tactics spread across the Allied forces, a new sense of hope emerged among the weary ranks. For the first time in months, the Alliance's forces felt a spark of optimism. Humanity's arrival had brought not only reinforcements but a fresh approach to warfare, one that was impossible to predict, difficult to counter, and incredibly effective. Enemy factions, too, began taking notice. What they'd assumed to be a minor addition to the battlefield was quickly turning into a genuine threat. The enemy forces had long relied on their technological superiority and brute force, assuming it would crush any opposition. But humanity's tactics rendered much of that power ineffective. The enemy's largest ships, designed to dominate through overwhelming firepower, struggled to target the swift, coordinated movements of the human fleet. Alien commanders scrambled to adapt, but the humans seemed to anticipate every counter, adapting even faster. Back in the War Council, alien leaders reviewed footage of humanity's performance with a newfound respect. Initial skepticism was replaced with guarded admiration. The humans had entered the war quietly, without ceremony or grand declarations, yet they had left an undeniable mark. In their ranks, the Galactic leaders began to sense a shift, a stirring recognition that they had underestimated a species who saw war not as an inevitable means of dominance but as an opportunity to adapt, survive, and overcome. By the time the reports of humanity's first victories reached the galaxy's far reaches, the Alliance knew that the war had changed. Humanity had come into the conflict uninvited, unexpected, and entirely underestimated. Now, as they moved to their next engagement, one thing was clear: the galaxy was watching, and humanity was just getting started. Humanity's first real engagement in the war left both their allies and enemies unsettled. The galaxy's seasoned commanders, who had seen centuries of warfare, now watched with astonishment as human ships navigated the battlefield with a fluidity and precision they'd never anticipated. Where alien fleets relied on brute strength and sheer firepower, humanity used tactics that seemed almost unpredictable, changing formations in seconds and exploiting every weakness they found. Alien generals observed from their command centers, watching live feeds with a growing sense of disbelief. Human ships, smaller and less armored, should have been at a disadvantage, yet they moved like a synchronized machine, weaving through enemy lines and creating openings where there had been none. Each vessel seemed to anticipate the next, their coordination bordering on instinctual. For every counter the enemy deployed, the humans responded with a move that defied convention, outmaneuvering even the most sophisticated ships. As the skirmish progressed, the aliens saw an entirely different aspect of human warfare: deception. Human forces employed decoy ships, unmanned drones, and cloaked vessels to confuse and mislead the enemy. False signals led entire battalions into traps, and enemy commanders found themselves chasing phantom fleets while the real threats remained concealed. It was a tactic the galaxy's most advanced military minds hadn't anticipated. They were accustomed to warfare where overwhelming force crushed resistance, not a battlefield where they were outwitted at every turn. The first major clash concluded with human forces forcing the enemy into a hasty retreat. Watching the enemy pull back, alien commanders were left to reassess everything they knew about warfare. They had always believed that victory belonged to those with the strongest fleets, but humanity had demonstrated something different. The humans didn't rely on size or raw power but on strategy, adaptability, and relentless precision. Their tactics were effective not because of advanced technology but because of their innovative use of what they had, a resourcefulness that alien forces found unsettling. In the days following the battle, word of humanity's methods spread throughout the Allied ranks. Soldiers and officers alike shared stories of the human fleet's maneuvers, each retelling painting a clearer picture of their unique approach. Aliens who had once looked down on humanity as backward now spoke of them with a guarded respect. Humanity, it seemed, fought with an intensity that no one had expected, their strategic approach turning the tide in places where defeat had seemed inevitable. For the first time, the Alliance's forces felt a shift in morale, a hope that maybe, with humanity's help, they could survive this war. Meanwhile, the enemy forces were reeling. Used to instilling fear in their opponents, they now found themselves struggling against a foe that defied their expectations at every turn. Stories of human tactics reached even the highest levels of enemy command, each report describing an adversary that moved unpredictably, whose forces were impossible to pin down. The tales of humanity's ingenuity spread rapidly, causing unease among even the most battle-hardened commanders. Humanity wasn't just a minor addition to the alliance, they were a disruptive force. The enemy command scrambled to adjust, issuing orders to counter the human fleet's tactics. They attempted to cut off human supply lines, deploying advanced tracking systems to anticipate their movements. But for every adaptation they made, humanity responded with new tactics, their forces shifting in ways the enemy couldn't foresee. Human pilots operated in a way that defied the structured, predictable tactics alien commanders relied on. They exploited every gap, anticipated every trap, and used enemy strategies against them with a ruthless efficiency. For the alien alliance, watching these developments was like witnessing an art form in motion. Human commanders didn't stick to one approach, they adapted, responding to every enemy move with a calculated unpredictability. Where alien fleets would press forward with sheer force, humanity pulled back, drew the enemy in, and struck where they were weakest. And as the battle reports stacked up, alien allies began to notice a pattern. Human forces never struck without a purpose. Every maneuver, every skirmish had a strategic aim, each one part of a larger plan that the alliance itself had yet to grasp. As the days wore on, the enemy's losses mounted. Once seen as invincible, they were now forced into a defensive stance, their plans disrupted by the relentless pressure of humanity's tactics. Enemy commanders, once dismissive, began to view humanity with growing unease. They had underestimated Earth's forces, expecting a minor resistance at best, and now found themselves unable to gain ground. Every new strategy, every countermeasure fell short, leaving the enemy fleet scrambling, their confidence shaken in the face of humanity's relentless, precise assaults. Amid this rising tension, the alien alliance's leaders convened in an emergency council. What they had thought would be humanity's gradual integration into their forces was now turning into a crucial reliance on human tactics. They realized that humanity wasn't simply aiding their forces, they were redefining the battlefield. Humanity's way of war was unpredictable, a constant reshuffling of strategies that kept the enemy unbalanced. For the first time in the war, the Alliance had an edge, and it was all due to humanity's unconventional approach. The realization struck the Council hard. Humanity wasn't just a wild card, they were a game changer. In the short time since they'd entered the war, humanity had proven itself capable of leading assaults, creating openings, and shifting the course of battles that had previously been lost causes. And with each victory, the Alliance's forces grew bolder, confident now that the enemy's downfall was not only possible but within reach. Humanity had brought more than just soldiers, they'd brought hope. As alien commanders reflected on the battles fought alongside human forces, a sense of respect and wonder took hold. They saw in humanity a fierce independence, a refusal to yield, and a knack for turning limitations into strengths. The humans, with their smaller ships and unconventional tactics, had shown a courage and resilience that set them apart from any other species the galaxy had known. Humanity's presence on the battlefield became a force that none could ignore. Where other species measured warfare by the strength of their weapons and the size of their fleets, humanity demonstrated an unyielding resolve that went beyond technology. Every battle carried their mark, swift, calculated, and relentless. In each engagement, humans fought with an intensity that left both allies and enemies stunned. They never relented, never backed down, and alien commanders soon found themselves compelled to respect this tenacity. On the front lines, human forces pushed further, driving into hostile territory with a precision that alien commanders could only describe as ruthless. But it wasn't cruelty, it was efficiency. Human pilots took calculated risks that seemed reckless to their allies, dodging through enemy fire to strike weak points in enemy lines, dismantling command ships and supply routes in quick succession. They fought with a fierce determination, an almost personal defiance, as if they were proving something, to themselves and to the galaxy. Allies who had once looked on skeptically now depended on human forces to lead attacks, finding humanity's strategies to be both unpredictable and effective. Human commanders weren't content with small victories. They pressed for total control over every engagement, pushing the boundaries of what the Alliance believed possible. Alien officers began to notice a pattern. When humanity entered a battle, the outcome was never left to chance. Their forces advanced with the singular purpose of ensuring victory, refusing to accept any notion of defeat. As the battles intensified, human resilience only grew. Enemy forces, accustomed to species that surrendered under pressure, were unnerved by humanity's willingness to fight at any cost. Reports filtered back to enemy command detailing human squads that held their positions against overwhelming odds, suffering heavy losses yet refusing to abandon their posts. Tales circulated of human soldiers holding strongholds, facing certain death with a grim resolve that shook enemy morale. To the enemy, humanity's endurance seemed unnatural, a force that didn't bend or break, no matter the adversity. The enemy began to adapt, deploying greater numbers and heavier weaponry, attempting to crush humanity's lines through sheer force. But with every new offensive, human forces adapted just as quickly, countering with strategies that neutralized even the most advanced technologies. Human scientists and engineers, working tirelessly on captured enemy tech, developed countermeasures that kept alien weaponry from reaching its full potential. Enemy fleets, accustomed to relying on superior technology, found themselves stripped of their advantage, facing a foe that had turned their strengths into weaknesses. This relentless pressure led the enemy to reconsider their strategies, with commanders issuing directives to avoid direct confrontation with human forces when possible. Even the enemy's most seasoned tacticians saw humanity as an unknown variable, a factor that disrupted their carefully laid plans. For the first time, they began to focus less on conquest and more on survival, reshaping their strategies around humanity's unpredictable tactics. Back on the command ships of the Alliance, the impact of humanity's strategies became impossible to ignore. Alien leaders, who once viewed humanity as a minor asset, now realized that the humans weren't simply holding their own, they were shifting the entire course of the war. Battles that had once seemed lost causes now ended in victory, and the Alliance's confidence surged. Humanity's approach to warfare was unconventional, but it had become the backbone of their success. The galaxy's most seasoned generals began to defer to human tactics, adapting their own approaches to fit this new model of resilience and adaptability. In the alien ranks, soldiers who had once fought alongside humanity began sharing stories of their human allies, stories of bravery and sacrifice, of battles won through sheer determination and clever strategy. The Alliance marveled at humanity's willingness to push themselves beyond normal limits, to place survival second to victory. Humans would exhaust every option, turn every setback into an advantage, and fight as though every battle was personal. Enemy forces, meanwhile, found themselves facing a growing sense of dread each time human ships appeared on their scanners. Alien soldiers, once confident and certain of their superiority, now hesitated at the thought of engaging with human forces. Tales of humanity's resilience spread, of battles where human forces had held the line until reinforcements arrived, buying time with a ferocity that bordered on the unimaginable. Even the most hardened alien fighters found themselves rattled by humanity's reputation, stories of squads that had fought to the last, of tactics that had turned desperate situations into victories. As human forces pushed deeper into enemy territory, the galaxy began to shift. Humanity's presence was no longer a curiosity but a driving force, a factor that every commander, ally or enemy, had to consider. Alien officers acknowledged what they had never thought possible. Humanity wasn't just part of the Alliance, they were its most valuable asset. Battles were now planned around humanity's tactics, with allied forces learning to adapt their strategies to match the humans' unorthodox approach. But humanity didn't just inspire fear in their enemies, they inspired respect. Among allies, the name, Earth, became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that victory was not a matter of strength alone but of will. Human forces, their small fleet now regarded as legendary, became synonymous with the Alliance's renewed hope. Leaders who had once doubted them now saw humanity as essential, a force that represented a new future in the galaxy's struggle for survival. As the war continued, one thing became clear: humanity was more than just a participant in the conflict. They were a force of change. Their methods, their determination, and their ability to endure had reshaped the entire war. Alien allies looked to them with newfound admiration, and enemies regarded them with a fear that was difficult to ignore. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and now, facing the results, they could only watch as humanity continued to push forward, relentless, unbreakable, and utterly unafraid. Humanity's relentless advance forced the enemy to reconsider everything they had thought they knew about warfare. Each encounter pushed them back further, and with each step, humanity's presence in the galaxy grew stronger. The alien commanders, once arrogant and assured of their superiority, were now issuing frantic orders for regrouping and retreat. The front lines, once dominated by the enemy, began to crumble under the weight of humanity's persistent pressure. Humanity wasn't content with mere victories. They were dismantling the enemy's power structure, piece by piece. The enemy's high command watched as humanity pressed forward with a determination that refused to weaken. Their soldiers reported instances where human forces took staggering risks, executing maneuvers that defied logic, and yet they succeeded time and time again. Humanity's forces didn't just march into enemy territory. They owned every inch they claimed, sending a clear message with each battle. They were here to end this war, and nothing would stop them. In desperation, the enemy deployed their most powerful weaponry, pulling out the last reserves of their forces in a final bid to overwhelm humanity. Their command centers issued orders for mass offensives, believing that brute force would finally break humanity's hold. But human forces met every assault with calculated responses, countering massive fleets and overwhelming firepower with strategies that turned the enemy's strength against them. Each new weapon deployed was analyzed, adapted to, and neutralized with the kind of efficiency that alien commanders found terrifying. Humanity was proving to be a force that didn't just survive, they adapted, relentlessly and without mercy. The Alliance watched, both stunned and invigorated by humanity's impact. Alien leaders, who had once viewed humanity as a desperate gamble, now saw them as the backbone of their military strategy. Humans had shown the galaxy a new way of war, one that wasn't defined by overwhelming firepower but by precise, unyielding determination. Their tactics became the standard, with alien commanders adopting human strategies and abandoning the traditional methods they'd relied on for centuries. Humanity's influence had reshaped the Alliance itself, giving them hope, confidence, and a path forward in a war they'd once been close to losing. The enemy's morale began to break. Stories spread throughout their ranks of entire fleets falling to human forces, of battalions decimated by squads that refused to retreat, of human ships appearing in sectors once thought impregnable. Humanity's reputation became a specter that haunted every enemy soldier, a constant reminder of their unstoppable drive. Despair settled in as they realized that no amount of reinforcement could stem humanity's advance. For every fleet they sent, humanity countered with strategies that left no room for recovery, no chance to regroup. In the final days of the campaign, humanity launched a coordinated assault on the enemy's core stronghold. The Allied forces, unified under humanity's command, moved with a precision that spoke of months of planning. Human ships led the charge, striking at key defense points and dismantling the stronghold's shields. Alien commanders, following humanity's lead, executed the plan with the efficiency they had learned from their human allies. Within hours, the stronghold that had once seemed impenetrable fell, and with it, the last remnant of the enemy's power. As the dust settled, a silence fell over the battlefield, a silence that held the weight of victory and finality. Humanity had not only defeated the enemy, they had ended the conflict with a level of decisiveness that left no room for doubt. Alien commanders and soldiers alike looked to the human forces, acknowledging the impact they'd made, the way they had turned the tide of a war that had once seemed hopeless. Back in the Alliance's command center, the leaders reviewed the victory, and with it, the undeniable truth of humanity's strength. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had entered the war as an unknown, a species many had dismissed as primitive, irrelevant. Now they were legends, a force that had earned the respect and awe of every race that had fought beside them. Alien commanders, who had once questioned humanity's role, now regarded them as equals, allies, and, above all, a power that would shape the future of the galaxy. With the war over, stories of humanity's role spread to every corner of the Alliance. They spoke of courage and resilience, of soldiers who had fought until the end, of leaders who had refused to yield. Humanity had entered the war without fanfare, but they left it as heroes, their legacy solidified in the annals of galactic history. Across alien worlds, humanity became a symbol of unbreakable will, of a species that had taken on a war and refused to be defeated. And as peace settled over the galaxy, the Alliance leaders knew that they had witnessed the birth of a legend. Humanity wasn't just another ally, they were a force that had changed everything, a reminder that strength wasn't defined by size or technology, but by the resilience of spirit and the will to persevere.